My name is Thomas. I'm 92 years old. And in 1943, when I was just 17, I watched grown men, hardened German soldiers who had fought Rommel's campaigns in North Africa, break down crying over a hamburger. Not because they were sad, because they couldn't believe it was real. I need to tell you this story because, well, I'm 92. That means I've got what? Maybe 5 years? Maybe less if my heart decides it's had enough. And there's something I need you to understand before I'm gone. Something about who we were, about what real strength looks like, about the kind of power that doesn't need to prove itself through cruelty. I was there. I saw it happen. And 79 years later, I still think about those men almost every day. Let me take you back. June 1943, Mexia, Texas. Hot. God, it was hot that summer. The kind of heat that makes the air shimmer and your shirt stick to your back before you've even stepped outside. I was working at my father's general store on Railroad Street, stocking shelves, sweeping floors, doing the things 17-year-old boys did while their brothers were overseas fighting. My brother Jimmy was somewhere in the Pacific. We hadn't heard from him in 6 weeks, and my mother kept his picture on the mantle and prayed every night. So when word came through that German prisoners were arriving on the evening train, actual Germans, the enemy, the men killing our boys, the whole town turned out. I remember standing on that platform with my father, feeling this strange mix of curiosity and anger. I wanted to see them. I wanted to understand what made someone fight for Hitler. And if I'm being honest, I wanted to hate them, because hating them felt cleaner than being scared for Jimmy. The train pulled in around 8 p.m. Still light out, summer light that stretched forever. And I remember the sound before anything else, the sound of boots on wood. Hundreds of boots, all hitting the platform in this uneven rhythm. Shuffle, shuffle, thud. These weren't marching soldiers anymore. These were tired men. The uniforms were Afrika Korps tan, dusty, worn thin in places. Some of the men limped. Some had bandages. They looked, I don't know, smaller than I expected. Not physically small, just diminished somehow, defeated. But here's what I remember most, what I'll never ever forget, the moment they saw the lights. Every street lamp in Mexia was burning, every single one. The drugstore across the street had its neon sign flickering red and blue. The movie theater marquee blazed with bulbs spelling out Stage Door Canteen. And the shops, hardware store, baker, even old Mrs. Patterson's dress shop, all had their windows lit up like it was Christmas morning. One of the German officers just stopped. Dead stop in the middle of the platform. His mouth fell open, and he said something in German to the man next to him. The other man shook his head slowly, like he was refusing to believe what he was seeing. My father spoke a little German. His own father came from Bavaria in 1887, and he leaned over to me and whispered. He said, "It's impossible. They're at war. There should be blackout." And right then, right in that moment, I got my first hint that these men had been told things about America that weren't true. That maybe the real battle wasn't going to be fought with guns at all. You might be thinking, well, of course they were surprised. Everyone knew about the blackouts in Europe. But you have to understand what this meant to them. In Germany, they'd been living in darkness since 1940. Every window covered, every light extinguished. Getting caught with your curtains open could get you arrested. And here we were, in a country actively fighting a war on two fronts, and we were blazing with light like we didn't have a care in the world, like we had electricity to waste, because we did. We absolutely did. That's what they couldn't comprehend, the casual abundance, the waste that came from having so much you didn't need to think about it. The prisoners were marched to trucks, big army transport trucks that would take them to Camp Hearn, about 40 miles northeast. But over the next 2 years, I would see hundreds of them, because they worked on farms all around our area. Geneva Convention allowed it, agricultural work, non-military labor. And my father's store became a regular stop for the guards who brought prisoner work details into town for supplies. That's how I met Hans. And that's when everything I thought I knew about enemies started to fall apart. It was August, maybe 6 weeks after they'd arrived. Hot as blazes, the kind of heat where you can't think straight. A guard brought a work detail into town, maybe a dozen prisoners, to pick up supplies for the Henderson farm where they'd been working the cotton. The guard, a sergeant named Martinez, said they could look around the store for a few minutes while he settled up the account. And this one prisoner, I'd later learn his name was Hans Mueller, started walking up and down the aisles, just walking, touching things. His hands moved slowly, carefully, like he thought the cans might disappear if he grabbed them too fast. Cans of peaches, Del Monte peaches in heavy syrup, boxes of Ritz crackers, jars of Peter Pan peanut butter, Spam, Campbell's soup, Kellogg's cornflakes. We had everything, you know. Not unlimited. We had rationing same as everyone, but we had plenty. And Hans stopped in aisle 3, right next to the dry goods, and he picked up a can of Spam. Do you know what Spam is? It's this mystery meat, pressed pork and ham, and God knows what else. Comes in a blue and yellow can. We all complained about it, called it something posing as meat. The soldiers overseas were sick of it, but Hans held that can like it was gold bullion. He read the label, read it over and over. His lips were moving, sounding out the English words. Then he looked at me. I was stacking flour sacks nearby, and he said in careful, broken English, This is for citizens? For normal people buying? I said, yes. Just yes. Didn't know what else to say. And he said, in Germany, in my home, only soldiers see meat sometimes. My wife, my children, they have ration cards for 200 grams each week. Sometimes no meat comes, just the card, the promise of meat. His eyes got wet. This is 340 grams. This is more than my whole family for 1 week. Then he started crying, just standing there in aisle 3 of my father's store, holding a can of Spam that cost 28 cents, tears running down his face and dripping off his chin. The guard pretended not to notice. I pretended not to notice, but I noticed. How could you not? This was a grown man, had to be 35, 40 years old, a soldier who'd fought in North Africa, who'd survived tank battles and desert combat, and he was weeping over the kind of food we fed our dogs. I didn't understand it then. Not really. I was 17, and the world was still pretty simple in my head. Good guys, bad guys, us and them. But something shifted that day. Some question mark appeared where there'd only been a period before. Over the next few months, I kept seeing the prisoners around town. They worked the Henderson farm, the Patterson ranch, the cotton gin outside town. And I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Mrs. Henderson, she was this round, cheerful woman whose husband was in North Africa, ironically enough. She treated the prisoners like they were her own workers. She brought them lunch, sandwiches thick with ham, apples, cookies her daughter made, lemonade in mason jars with ice. In the middle of summer, in 1943, I watched one prisoner eat half his sandwich, then carefully wrap the other half in the wax paper and put it in his pocket. Mrs. Henderson saw it too. She made him another sandwich right there, pulled out a loaf of bread from her basket, sliced it thick, piled on more ham than I'd eat in a week. She said, I remember this exactly. She said, that one's for later, honey. This one's for now. You need your strength. He didn't understand all the English, but he understood the kindness. You could see it in his face. This look of, I don't know, confusion, gratitude, disbelief, all of it at once. He ate the second sandwich, and then he worked harder than any man I'd ever seen work, like he was trying to repay something that couldn't be repaid, like he was working off a debt to human decency itself. My father told me the prisoners were paid 80 cents a day for their work. 80 cents. The money was held in an account, and they could use it for small things, toiletries, cigarettes, or save it to send home through the Red Cross when possible. And they saved every penny, every single penny. One prisoner, a man named Friedrich who worked the cotton gin, told my father that in Germany before the war, he'd worked in a shoe factory 6 days a week and couldn't afford to buy the boots he made. 6 days, he said, holding up 6 fingers. 2 years, no boots. But here, in 3 months of prison camp wages at 80 cents a day, he'd saved enough to buy boots for his entire family. If I ever see them again, he said. That ith just hung there in the air. Nobody said anything after that. You might be thinking, and I know some of you are thinking this because people said it then too. You might be thinking they were treated well because they were white, because they were European. And you wouldn't be wrong, not entirely wrong. I'm not going to stand here and tell you race didn't matter in 1940s Texas, because of course it did. It mattered everywhere. Black Americans were fighting for our freedom in Europe and the Pacific, and coming home to Jim Crow laws and separate water fountains and worse. Japanese Americans, American citizens, were in internment camps, had lost their homes, their businesses, everything. The contradiction was real. The hypocrisy was real. And it was shameful. It still is shameful. But here's what's also true, and what makes it more complicated. The German prisoners noticed it too. They noticed the contradiction. See, they've been told by their officers, by Nazi propaganda, that America was weak because of racial mixing. That diversity made us vulnerable, that their racial purity made them strong. That was the whole foundation of their ideology, right? Racial hierarchy, purity, strength through sameness. But then they'd see Black Americans working in the factories, operating complex machinery, managing entire production lines. They'd see Mexican-American guards like Sergeant Martinez, who spoke 3 languages and ran the work details with more efficiency than their own officers. They'd see women running farms while their husbands were overseas, managing equipment and workers and crops. And it didn't fit. Let me tell you about the factory. This was fall of 1943, October, maybe early November. Some of the prisoners from Camp Hearn were assigned to work at a manufacturing plant in Houston. Not making weapons, Geneva Convention prohibited that, but making parts for agricultural equipment, tractors and combines, which freed up American workers to make tanks and planes. My father drove supplies down there once, and he took me along. I was 17, curious, hungry to see everything. We left Mexia before dawn and drove 3 hours through the coastal plains. And when we arrived, this was during the shift change around 3 p.m., I saw something I still can't quite process all these years later. The parking lot had to hold 3,000 cars, 3,000 automobiles. The workers, and I'm talking women in coveralls, men with gray hair who were too old for service, Black workers from the 5th Ward, they all drove to work in their own cars. Ford Coupes, Chevrolet sedans, even a few Packards. Just regular workers. Just people who operated machines and drew a paycheck. And standing at the fence, watching all this, were maybe 50 German prisoners waiting to be transported to their work assignment. One of them, officer, you could tell by the way he stood, was counting the cars as they pulled out. I watched him count to about 500. His lips were moving with the numbers. Then he just stopped, put his head in his hands. Sergeant Martinez was standing near us, and he said quietly, almost sadly, "They do that every shift change. Count the cars. I think they're trying to prove to themselves somehow that it's fake, that we're moving the same cars around to fool them. They can't accept that this many workers own automobiles." Inside the factory, we had to go in to deliver machine parts my father had special ordered. The noise was incredible. I mean, you couldn't hear yourself think. Stamping presses, drilling machines, lathes, grinders, all of it running simultaneously. This mechanical symphony of American production. And it was running on a skeleton crew because so many men were overseas. But the women operating the machinery, they were fast, efficient, precise. I watched one woman, couldn't have been more than 25, managing a stamping press that probably weighed 2 tons. She was reading a magazine. I'm not kidding. She had a copy of Ladies' Home Journal propped up on a shelf, and she'd glance at it, then look up to check the press, then back to her magazine. Casual, like she was knitting or something, not operating heavy industrial equipment. A German prisoner, assigned to move materials, pushing a hand truck, stood nearby, and I could see him staring at her. Finally, he said, in very careful English, "In Germany, this is man's work. Very heavy work, dangerous for woman." She looked at him, and I remember this. I remember her expression, not mean, just matter of fact. And she said, "Well, the men are busy killing Nazis, honey, so I guess we'll just have to manage. We're doing fine." Then she smiled, not mocking him, just smiling, and went back to her magazine. The prisoner nodded slowly. He went back to moving materials, but every few minutes I'd see him looking at her again, like he was trying to solve an equation that had the wrong answer. Like everything he'd been taught said, this shouldn't work, but here it was, working better than anything in Germany had ever worked. Here's what I've learned in 92 years, and here's what those German prisoners taught me without meaning to. Strength isn't what we think it is. We think strength is domination, control, having your boot on someone's neck, the ability to inflict pain without feeling it yourself. But that's not strength. That's fear pretending to be strength. That's weakness wearing a strong mask. Real strength, the kind of strength that lasts, that builds things instead of just breaking them. Real strength is so secure, so confident, so unshakable that it can afford to be kind. It can afford to show mercy. It can afford to treat enemies like human beings because it knows, absolutely knows deep in its bones that it's going to win. That was America in 1943. We knew we were going to win. The question was never if, only when. And that certainty, that absolute confidence, it gave us the freedom to be humane. Christmas 1943. This is the part that still makes me cry, and I'm not ashamed to say it. The local churches, Methodist, Baptist, even the Catholics, organized Christmas packages for the prisoners. Let me say that again so it sinks in. American churches sent Christmas gifts to German prisoners, to enemies, to men who had been shooting at American soldiers just months earlier. And not token gifts either. Real packages. Cookies. Homemade cookies that women baked in their own kitchens. Candy. Cigarettes. Books in German that they somehow found or ordered. Writing paper. Pencils. Shaving supplies. The Methodist choir decided they were going to sing carols for the prisoners at Camp Hearn. My family went. My father, my mother, my little sister. It was Christmas Eve, cold for Texas, maybe 40 degrees, and we drove out to the camp with probably 50 other people from town. The camp was this sprawling collection of wooden barracks, surrounded by fences, but not the scary kind with barbed wire, just regular fencing. And the prisoners, had to be 3,000 of them, were standing in formation in the main yard. They stood at attention, straight and military, even though the guards had said they could be at ease. They stood like soldiers because that's what they were. But their faces weren't soldiers' faces anymore. The choir formed up near the gate, about 30 women, all ages, dressed in their Sunday best despite the cold. And they started singing, Stille Nacht, Heilige Nacht, Silent Night, but they sang it in German. I watched 3,000 German soldiers, hardened combat veterans of the Afrika Korps, men who had survived tank battles and artillery bombardments and the brutality of desert warfare, standing in the cold Texas evening while American women sang to them in their mother tongue. And I watched them weep. Some maintained their composure, stood rigid, eyes forward. But many couldn't. You could see shoulders shaking, hands coming up to wipe eyes, men looking at the ground because they couldn't trust themselves to look up. The camp commander, Colonel Foster, was standing near us. My father asked him, I'll never forget this conversation. My father said, "Why do we do this, Jack? Why show this kindness to enemies?" And Colonel Foster looked at those men weeping while women sang about peace on earth and goodwill to men. And he said, "Because we can afford to. Because we're going to win this war, and we know it, and they're starting to know it too. And when we win, we want them to remember that America defeated them, yes, but also showed them humanity. We want them to go home and build a Germany that's different, that doesn't need to conquer to feel strong, that doesn't need to hate to feel proud." After the singing, the packages were distributed. 3,000 packages for 3,000 men. The prisoners opened them in the barracks, and the guards said later that the barracks were completely silent except for crying. Grown men crying over cookies and candy, over small kindnesses from the families of their enemies, over the cognitive dissonance of being treated better as prisoners than they'd been treated as soldiers by their own government. That night broke something in them, or maybe it built something. Maybe it planted seeds that would grow into the democratic Germany that came after the war. I don't know. I just know it mattered. I know it changed them. And if I'm being honest, it changed us too. It changed me. I was 17, and I'd wanted to hate them, needed to hate them, because my brother was fighting, and hating was easier than understanding. But you can't watch men weep over Christmas cookies and still see them as monsters. Hans came to our store maybe a dozen times over the next year and a half. Each time he was different, less broken, more curious, more hopeful. He asked me about school, about what I wanted to do after the war, about my family. I asked him about Germany, about his life before. He'd been a machinist in Stuttgart. He had a wife, Anna, and 2 children, a boy and a girl, 7 and 5. He hadn't heard from them in over a year, didn't know if they were alive. The bombing, you know. Stuttgart was being hit hard. He showed me a picture once, kept in his wallet. The photo was worn, edges soft from being handled too many times. His wife was pretty, smiling at the camera like she didn't have a care in the world. The children were blonde, laughing. It was taken before the war, you could tell, before everything fell apart. I asked him what he'd do after the war, and he said, "If I have family still, I build new life, not Nazi life, democratic life, like America." He struggled with English, but he was learning. He said, "I see here that prosperity comes from freedom, not from conquest. That diversity makes strong, not weak. These things I was told opposite, but I have eyes, I see truth." In early 1945, after Germany surrendered, the prisoners had to wait for transport ships to take them home. It took months. Some didn't leave until 1946. Hans was one of the last groups. He came to the store one final time in January 1946 to say goodbye. He shook my father's hand. He shook my hand. He was 22 by then, had grown into myself a bit. And Hans said to us, "Thank you for showing me what is possible. Thank you for treating enemy like human being. I go home now to build Germany that deserves you as friend, not fear you as conqueror." My father gave him a can of Spam, just pulled it off the shelf and handed it to him. Hans laughed, real laughter, and said, "First time I see this, I cry. Now it reminds me that humans can be good." He took it with him. I often wonder if he ever opened it, or if he kept it as a reminder. 16 years passed. 16 years of my life. College, marriage, taking over the store from my father, having kids of my own, watching the Cold War develop, watching Germany split into East and West. And in 1961, on a summer afternoon almost as hot as that June day in 1943, a man walked into my store. Well-dressed, confident. He walked straight to aisle 3, stood there for a moment, then turned to me and said, "You still sell Spam here?" It took me a moment. His English was much better. He'd put on weight, looked healthy, prosperous, but the eyes were the same. "Hans?" I said. He smiled. "Yes, Hans Mueller. You remember me." He'd brought his family. His wife Anna had survived the war. His children were grown. His son was in university, studying engineering. Hans himself had become a successful manufacturer in Stuttgart. He made precision machine parts. "Everything I built," he told me, "I built from what I learned here. Not just technique. I learned that treating workers with dignity makes them produce better. That prosperity comes from freedom, that we don't have to conquer to be great." My father was retired by then, but still came around the store most days. He cried when he saw Hans. Only time I ever saw my father cry, except when my mother died. Hans bought a case of Spam, 12 cans, said he was taking them back to Germany to show people. "This is what I cried over," he planned to tell them. "This is what America had so much of, they didn't even value it. That's the prosperity we can build if we choose freedom." I'm telling you all this now because I'm 92, and I won't be here much longer to tell it. And I think we've forgotten something important about who we are, or who we were, or who we could be again. I watch the news these days, and I hear people talking about strength, about being tough, about not being soft on our enemies. And I think about Hans crying over Spam. I think about Colonel Foster saying we showed mercy because we could afford to. I think about Mrs. Henderson making sandwiches for enemy soldiers. And I wonder if we still believe that real strength is confident enough to be kind. The reason we beat the Nazis wasn't just because we had more factories and more tanks, though we did. It was because our system produced more. And our system produced more because it was built on freedom, on giving people stake in their own success, on diversity, on argument, on the messy, complicated reality of democracy. They saw that American workers produced more because they were working for themselves, not for some master race mythology. They saw that American innovation came from bringing together people from every background. They saw that American resilience came from a people who believed they had something worth defending. And they wanted that for Germany. We didn't win because we were crueler than the Nazis. God knows they had us beat on cruelty. We won because we were better, not better people. We had our share of cruelty, our share of racism and injustice and hypocrisy, but a better system, a system that unleashed human potential instead of crushing it. Here's what I need you to understand, what I need you to take from this. Real power doesn't need to prove itself through cruelty. Real strength is secure enough to show mercy. And real victory isn't just defeating your enemies, it's transforming them into friends. We did that once. We took the most fanatical soldiers of the most evil regime in modern history, and we transformed them. Not through torture or brainwashing, but through the simple, overwhelming evidence of what a free society could build. We showed them prosperity that made their propaganda look like lies. We treated them with dignity, even though they were enemies. And we won not just the war, but the peace that followed. Germany became our ally, our friend, our partner. Not because we destroyed them, though we did defeat them militarily, but because we showed them something better. Can we do that again? Can we remember that strength means confidence, not cruelty? That showing mercy isn't weakness, it's the ultimate flex of power. I don't know. I'm 92. I won't be here to see it. But I hope so. God, I hope so. Because the alternative is a world where we lose the thing that made us worth defending in the first place, that made us different from the Nazis we fought. That made us America. I think about those German prisoners every single day of my life. I think about Hans crying over Spam in aisle 3. I think about Friedrich marveling that black workers had cars. I think about 3,000 soldiers weeping while church ladies sang German carols. And I think that was our finest moment. Not D-Day, not Iwo Jima, though those were necessary and noble, but that moment when we showed enemies humanity, when we proved our system was better, not through propaganda, but through letting them see it work. That's when we won the war, really won it. That's the victory that lasted. I'm Thomas. I'm 92 years old. I have maybe 5 years left if I'm lucky. And I watched German soldiers learn that America's real strength wasn't our weapons. It was our freedom, our prosperity through that freedom, and our confidence, our security, enough in that strength to show mercy to enemies. If you found this valuable, share it with someone, particularly if you know someone who thinks strength means being harder or crueler. Tell them about the prisoners who were transformed, not by punishment, but by prosperity, not by cruelty, but by kindness. And if you have stories from your own family about this era, about what America was like when we knew what we stood for, share them in the comments with your families. These stories need to live on after those of us who remember are gone. We were strong once, not because we were cruel, but because we were confident. Not because we were pure, but because we were diverse and free. We can be that again. I hope we will be.